The desperate signal. Marcus Webb rubbed his tired eyes and reached for his 5th cup of coffee that night. The Kepler Deep Space Observatory had been his second home for 8 years, but tonight felt different. The quantum communication array was picking up something strange from the Vega system, and the computer algorithms couldn't make sense of it. Webb was about to shut down for the evening when the speakers crackled to life with a sound he had never heard before. It was musical, almost like whale song, but underneath the melody was something that made his skin crawl. Desperation. The translation software worked frantically, converting the alien harmonics into readable text on his screen. Webb's hands trembled as he read the words that would change humanity's place in the universe forever. Emergency transmission to any sentient species capable of receiving this message. This is High Harmonist Lyra of the Zephyrian Alliance. Our confederation of 12 peaceful worlds is under siege by an ancient threat we call the Shadow Swarm. These mechanical parasites consume entire civilizations and convert all organic matter into their collective. We have lost 4 worlds in the past solar cycle. Our defensive capabilities are insufficient. We desperately seek aid from any species with military experience. Please respond if you value life in this galaxy. Webb stared at the message for several minutes, his mind struggling to process what he was reading. Aliens were real. They were at war, and they were asking for help from humanity. A species that had barely figured out how to leave its own solar system. He immediately contacted General Patricia Voss at the Global Defense Command. Within an hour, the small observatory was swarming with military personnel and scientists. The message was verified, analyzed, and confirmed as genuine by teams of experts who could hardly believe what they were examining. General Voss stood in the observatory's main control room, reading the alien message for the 3rd time. She was a veteran of 3 global conflicts and had seen humanity at its worst and best. The general understood violence in ways that most people couldn't imagine, but this was beyond anything she had prepared for. How long ago was this sent? She asked Dr. Webb. Based on the signals, characteristics, and the distance from Vega, approximately 6 months ago. If they're still alive, they've been fighting this shadow swarm for at least that long without help. Dr. Sarah Kim, the team's xenobiologist, looked up from her analysis tablet. General, I've been studying the language patterns in their transmission. These aliens don't seem to have concepts for words like killing or destruction in the way we understand them. Their entire vocabulary suggests a peaceful civilization. Peaceful species asking warriors for help, General Voss muttered. They must be desperate indeed. The decision to respond came from the highest levels of government, but it was unanimous. Humanity would answer the call. Earth's space fleet was small compared to what the message described, but humans had something the aliens apparently lacked. Thousands of years of experience in warfare. Admiral Sarah Chen received her orders while commanding the Deep Space Patrol near Jupiter. Her fleet consisted of only 12 ships, but they were the most advanced vessels humanity had ever built. Each ship was designed with one purpose in mind: to survive in hostile environments and eliminate threats to human civilization. Chen was a 3rd-generation military officer whose family had served in conflicts spanning from the resource wars to the Mars colony rebellions. She understood that sometimes peace could only be preserved through strength, and strength sometimes required terrible choices. The response message was crafted carefully by teams of linguists and diplomats. It was simple and direct. Alliance, this is Admiral Sarah Chen of the Earth Defense Fleet. We have received your distress call and are prepared to provide military assistance. Transmit coordinates for a meeting point. Humanity stands ready to help. The reply came faster than expected, filled with gratitude and hope that seemed almost childlike to the hardened military personnel reading it. The aliens provided coordinates for a neutral star system between their territory and Earth, along with technical specifications for their ships so that human vessels could identify friendly forces. Dr. Kim studied the alien ship designs with growing concern. Admiral, these vessels are works of art. Beautiful, elegant, incredibly advanced, but they're not built for combat. Look at these hull specifications. They prioritize efficiency and comfort over armor and weapons. Admiral Chen examined the technical data with the eye of someone who had spent her life understanding how things broke under pressure. They're racing cars trying to fight tanks. No wonder they're losing. The Earth fleet departed for the rendezvous point 3 days later. As they jumped to hyperspace, Admiral Chen couldn't shake the feeling that humanity was about to learn something profound about its place in a galaxy that had been peaceful for far longer than it had been violent. Unknown to the humans, their response had been received with celebration throughout the Zephyrian Alliance. For the first time since the Shadow Swarm had appeared, there was hope, but that hope was mixed with uncertainty. The aliens had studied the crude radio transmissions from Earth and knew that humans were a species that seemed to solve most problems. Through conflict, High Harmonious Lyra floated in her crystalline ship's meditation chamber, her bioluminescent tendrils pulsing with worry. Her people had achieved interstellar travel through cooperation and shared knowledge. They had built a civilization that spanned star systems without ever firing a weapon in anger. Now they were asking for help from creatures who apparently did little else. But as reports came in of another world falling to the Shadow Swarm, Lyra knew they had no choice. The machines consumed everything: art, music, culture, life itself. If these humans could stop that consumption, perhaps their violent nature was exactly what the galaxy needed. Preparing for the unknown, the rendezvous point was a barren star system with 3 dead planets orbiting a dying red giant. Admiral Chen chose it specifically because there was nothing there worth fighting over, and plenty of empty space to maneuver. If things went wrong, the human fleet arrived first and immediately established defensive positions. Chun's ships formed a protective formation while sensor arrays scanned for any signs of the approaching alien vessels or the mysterious Shadow Swarm. Lieutenant Commander Jake Morrison stood at the tactical station of the flagship Defiant, monitoring the scanner displays. Morrison had earned his reputation fighting pirates in the asteroid belt, where split-second decisions meant the difference between life and death. He was not impressed by what he was seeing. "Admiral, I'm reading 12 contacts approaching from the Vega direction. Their energy signatures are unlike anything in our database, but they're not trying to hide. No stealth systems, no electronic countermeasures. They're broadcasting their location like they want everyone to know where they are." Admiral Chen frowned. In a war zone, that's either supreme confidence or supreme foolishness. The alien ships arrived in a display that took the breath away from every human who witnessed it. The vessels moved in perfect harmony, like a school of fish or a flock of birds. They were organic-looking, with flowing curves and surfaces that seemed to shift color in the starlight. Each ship was unique, apparently grown rather than built, and they moved with a grace that made the angular human warships look clumsy by comparison. "Beautiful," whispered Dr. Kim from the science station. "They're not ships, they're living art." Art doesn't win wars, Morrison replied grimly. The lead alien vessel transmitted a docking request, and Admiral Chen agreed to meet aboard the Defiant. The airlocks cycled open to reveal beings that defied every human expectation about extraterrestrial life. High Harmonist Lyra entered first, floating rather than walking. Her body was translucent and filled with slowly swirling lights. Behind her came representatives of the other Alliance species, crystalline beings that rang like wind chimes when they moved, gaseous creatures that maintained barely solid forms, and plant-like entities whose leaves rustled with their own internal wind. Admiral Chen had prepared for this moment by studying every science fiction film and book she could find, but reality was far stranger than fiction. These beings radiated a sense of peace and wisdom that seemed almost impossible in a universe. At war, Admiral Chen, Lyra's voice resonated through the air without her apparently speaking. We are grateful beyond expression that you have answered our call. Your species' reputation for resolving conflicts had reached even our peaceful corners of the galaxy. Chen exchanged glances with Dr. Kim. The aliens seemed to view humanity's history of warfare as a positive trait, which was both flattering and disturbing. High Harmonist, we're here to help, but we need to understand what we're facing. Tell us about this shadow swarm. Lyra's lights dimmed, and the other aliens made sounds that the translator interpreted as expressions of grief and fear. A crystalline being stepped forward, its faceted body refracting the bridge lights into rainbow patterns. I am Builder Kex of the Shapers. We have fought the shadow swarm for 7 of your years. They are not alive as we understand life, but they are not merely machines either. They consume organic matter and use it to create more of themselves. Each world they take makes them stronger. Dr. Kim leaned forward with scientific curiosity overriding her diplomatic training. What is their origin? Are they artificial intelligence, biological weapons, some kind of hybrid? Unknown, responded a gaseous alien whose form shimmered. As it spoke, I am Drifter Nex of the Wanderers. Our ancient records speak of the shadow swarm from the time before the Alliance. They appear every few thousand years, consume what they can reach, then disappear into the dark spaces between galaxies. This time, they have stayed longer and grown stronger. Admiral Chen studied the tactical display showing the alien fleet. Show me how you've been fighting them. What followed was the most frustrating military briefing of Chun's career. The aliens showed recordings of their encounters with the shadow swarm, and every engagement followed the same pattern. The alien ships would approach the machine entities and attempt to communicate or negotiate. When that failed, they would use non-lethal weapons designed to disable rather than destroy. The shadow swarm would ignore their attempts at communication and systematically destroy or capture every alien vessel. You're trying to reason with a swarm of locusts, Morrison said bluntly. They don't want to negotiate, they want to eat you. The plant-like alien rustled its leaves in what the translator suggested was distress. But surely all sentient beings can find common ground through peaceful discussion. Not if one side sees the other as food, Chen replied. She activated the holographic display and showed the aliens recordings of human military tactics. This is how we fight threats that cannot be reasoned with. The aliens watched in horrified fascination as human ships engaged in simulated combat. The tactics were aggressive, decisive, and designed to eliminate threats as quickly as possible. There was no attempt at communication, no effort to disable rather than destroy. Your warriors show no mercy, observed Builder Kex. Mercy is for after the shooting stops, Chen said. First, you survive. Then you can afford to be merciful. Dr. Kim had been analyzing the Shadow Swarm data while the military discussion continued. Admiral, I'm seeing something interesting in their attack patterns. The machines seem to prioritize certain targets over others. They always go for population centers first, then industrial facilities, then resource extraction sites. They're harvesting, Chen realized. Not just consuming randomly. They want specific things. Biomass, manufacturing capability, raw materials. They're building something. Lyra's lights pulsed with sudden understanding. You believe they have a larger purpose beyond simple consumption. Everything in warfare has a purpose, Chen replied. Figure out what they're really trying to accomplish, and you can figure out how to stop them. The meeting continued for hours as humans tried to understand alien psychology and aliens tried to comprehend human military thinking. It became clear that the two approaches to conflict were so fundamentally different that cooperation would require both sides to change their basic assumptions about how problems should be solved. Commander Morrison pulled Admiral Chen aside during a break-in. The discussions. Admiral, I've been analyzing their ship designs. These aliens have technology that's centuries ahead of ours in some areas. Their power sources, their materials science, their computers, but they have no armor, no redundant systems, no weapons, designed to actually hurt an enemy. What are you thinking, Commander? I'm thinking we need to teach them how to fight, and they need to teach us how to build ships that don't fall apart when someone looks at them wrong. Separately, we're both going to lose. Together, we might have a chance. Admiral Chen looked back at the assembled aliens, who were discussing the moral implications of violence with the intensity that humans usually reserved for survival situations. Commander, I think you're right. But teaching a peaceful species how to wage war might be the hardest mission we've ever undertaken. As if summoned by her words, alarms began sounding throughout the ship. Lieutenant Commander Morrison rushed to his station, and his face went pale as he read the sensor data. Admiral, I'm reading massive contacts approaching the system. Energy. Signatures match the Shadow Swarm profiles from the alien data. Multiple ships, much larger than anything in their previous encounters. Chen felt the familiar calm that came before combat. How long until they reach us? 6 hours, ma'am. She looked at the aliens, who were staring at the tactical display with expressions that ranged from fear to resignation. None of them looked ready for the fight that was coming. High Harmonist, it looks like we're about to get a practical demonstration. In human military tactics, I hope your people are fast learners.